What if everything you've been told about losing fat is not just wrong, but working directly against you? Imagine waking up every single morning, stepping on that scale with a flicker of hope, and watching that number either stay frozen in place or creep higher, even though you've been eating less than you ever have in your life. You're skipping meals, you're dragging yourself through workouts that leave you completely drained, you're counting every calorie, reading every label, saying no to food you actually enjoy, and still nothing moves. That stubborn layer around your belly stays exactly where it is, as if your body has decided it belongs there permanently. If you've ever stood in front of a mirror, exhausted and frustrated, and quietly asked yourself what you were doing wrong, then what you're about to hear is going to change everything. Here's the truth that the fitness industry has buried under decades of bad advice. Your body does not lose fat through mathematics. It never has. Every calorie-counting app, every crash diet, every punishing workout plan that promises results if you just push harder is built on a foundation that completely ignores how human biology actually works. You've been handed a calculator when what you actually needed was a biology lesson. And once you understand the real system running beneath the surface, beneath every meal you eat and every moment you move, the confusion disappears and everything finally clicks into place. This is not about willpower. This is not about discipline. This is about one single hormone that is silently controlling whether your body burns fat or locks it away, regardless of how little you eat. That hormone is insulin. And before you scroll past thinking you've heard this before, stay with me, because what most people don't understand about insulin goes so much deeper than the surface-level explanation. Insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone. It is the master switch of your metabolism, the biological gatekeeper that decides in every single moment whether your body is in fat-burning mode or fat storage mode. When insulin levels are low, your body has complete permission to reach into its fat stores and use that energy freely. When insulin is high, that permission is revoked entirely, not reduced, not slowed down, completely revoked. And this distinction is the reason millions of people suffer through restriction and exhaustion and still never see the results they're desperately working toward. Think about your body as having two separate fuel tanks. The first is a small, fast-access tank filled with sugar energy called glycogen, stored in your liver and muscles. Think of it like the cash in your wallet. Quick, easy to grab, spent fast. The second tank is your body fat, an enormous reserve of stored energy designed by evolution for long-term survival. This is your savings account, built to keep you alive during periods of scarcity. Now here's what most people completely miss. Your body's biological priority is not to burn that fat first. Your body's deepest evolutionary instinct is actually to protect that fat, because in the ancient world, fat was the difference between surviving a famine or not. So your body guards it fiercely. And insulin is the security guard standing at the vault door deciding who gets in and who doesn't. When insulin levels are elevated, that security guard doesn't step aside. It locks the door, reinforces the walls, and declares that no fat is leaving this vault under any circumstances. There is a specific biological process called lipolysis, which is the mechanism your body uses to release fatty acids from fat cells so they can be burned for energy. Insulin directly shuts that process down. It doesn't just slow it, it switches it off at the cellular level. This means that no matter how large your calorie deficit is, no matter how many hours you spend in the gym, if insulin is chronically elevated throughout your day, your fat cells are physically incapable of releasing their stored energy. You are not failing because of weakness. You are failing because of a locked biological door that no amount of willpower can force open. This creates one of the cruelest paradoxes in human physiology. You can be simultaneously full of stored energy and starving at the cellular level. Your fat cells are packed, your reserves are massive, but your body's cells cannot access any of it because insulin has sealed the exit. What happens when your brain detects cells are running low on accessible energy? It does what brains have done for hundreds of thousands of years. It panics. It triggers a powerful hunger response, floods your system with cravings, and pushes you specifically towards fast-digesting sugary foods because those are the quickest way to restore cellular energy in a crisis. And here's where it becomes devastating. You eat those foods, insulin spikes again. Fat stays locked, hunger returns, the cycle tightens its grip, and people standing on the outside looking in call it a lack of self-control, when in reality, you were biologically trapped. Two people can eat the exact same meal containing the exact same number of calories and produce completely opposite results in their bodies. One person's insulin spikes hard, fat storage accelerates, energy crashes follow, and hunger returns within the hour. The other person's insulin stays calm and controlled. Fat continues releasing steadily, energy remains stable, and hunger naturally stays quiet for hours. The difference between these two people is not genetics. It is not metabolism in the mysterious way people use that word. It is hormonal signaling driven by behavior that can be learned, practiced, and refined. Fat loss is not a battle against the quantity of food. Fat loss is the skill of managing a biological switch, and the most powerful moment to flip that switch happens right at the very beginning of every single meal you eat. Most people eat in a specific unconscious order. Bread arrives at the table and gets eaten while waiting for the main course. The rice, pasta, or potatoes are often the first thing scooped onto the fork. Sweet drinks get sipped while the meal is being prepared. And in that moment, when carbohydrates enter an empty stomach that's primed and ready for peak absorption, what follows is almost guaranteed. Blood glucose rises rapidly and dramatically. Your pancreas reads this as a metabolic emergency because prolonged high blood sugar causes real tissue damage, and it responds by releasing a large, fast, aggressive wave of insulin to clear the glucose as quickly as possible. In that single unplanned moment, your fat-burning door slams shut, storage mode is activated, and the trajectory of that entire meal has already been decided before you've taken a second bite. The glucose then drops sharply because insulin has cleared it aggressively, often pushing it too low. Your brain, now sensing the crash, responds with sleepiness, brain fog, and an urgent, almost desperate craving for more sugar or starch to bring levels back up. And just like that, the cycle completes itself and immediately starts again. Carbohydrates first, insulin spike, fat storage, energy crash, powerful cravings, more eating, another spike. This loop runs every single day for millions of people who genuinely believe they're just eating normally, doing nothing wrong, and simply losing the battle against their own bodies. What they don't realize is that the same foods eaten in a completely different sequence produce a completely different biological outcome. Not a slightly better outcome, a fundamentally opposite one. This is where meal sequencing becomes the most underrated fat loss strategy in existence. The approach is simple in concept, but the biology behind it is genuinely remarkable. It starts with what you put into your body first, and it begins with fiber. Vegetables that are rich in fiber, things like leafy greens, broccoli, spinach, asparagus, cucumbers, and cabbage, should be the very first thing entering your digestive system at the start of every meal, not as an afterthought on the side of the plate, not as the garnish pushed to the edge, as the opening act that sets the entire biological stage for everything that follows. Most people treat these vegetables as optional, as filler, as the least exciting part of the plate, but from an insulin management standpoint, they are arguably the most powerful food you can eat. Here is what makes fiber so uniquely important. Fiber is not fuel. Your digestive system cannot break it down the way it breaks down sugar or starch. Because of this, fiber moves through your digestive system without triggering insulin, but its effect on everything that comes after is extraordinary. As fiber enters your stomach and moves into your small intestine, it forms a gel-like structure, almost like a biological mesh that coats the intestinal lining. This mesh acts as a physical buffer between your digestive system and any carbohydrates that arrive afterward. What fiber is changing is not how much glucose eventually enters your bloodstream, but how fast it gets there. And speed is everything when it comes to insulin response. The same amount of carbohydrate that causes a damaging spike when eaten first causes barely a ripple when eaten after a fiber base has already been laid down. Fiber also communicates directly with your nervous system in a way most people never learn about. When fiber stretches the walls of your stomach and gut, specialized receptors send signals up to your brain saying that food is coming in, but there is no emergency. This naturally slows the entire eating process. You chew more. You eat more slowly. The whole rhythm of the meal changes without any conscious effort. Slower eating produces a gentler, more gradual release of insulin across the board. People spend enormous energy trying to restrict what they eat, when something as simple as starting with a side salad can produce a more powerful hormonal result than cutting out hundreds of calories entirely. The fiber firewall is not a small trick, it is a foundational shift in how your metabolism receives and processes every meal. After the fiber foundation is laid, the next critical layer is protein combined with healthy fat. Think high-quality meat, fish, eggs, full-fat dairy, avocado, nuts, and olive oil. These are not simply calories on a plate, they are biological signals communicating to your body that real, substantial nourishment is arriving. When protein enters your digestive system, it triggers the release of a hormone called GLP-1. You may have heard this name recently because it's the hormone that the most talked about weight loss drugs in the world are designed to mimic. What most people don't realize is that your body produces this hormone naturally every time you eat adequate protein in the right context. GLP-1 slows gastric emptying, which means food leaves your stomach more gradually, extending the window over which glucose enters your blood. It sends powerful satiety signals directly to the brain, not the uncomfortable, stretched fullness of overeating, but a calm, settled sense of satisfaction where the mental chatter about eating simply goes quiet. GLP-1 does something that is critically important for anyone dealing with stubborn fat. It reduces the total amount of insulin your body needs to process a meal. Instead of your pancreas overreacting with a flood of insulin, it can respond proportionally, communicating calmly with less. Lower insulin response means dramatically less fat storage pressure. It means that vault door stays open longer, allowing fat to continue releasing even while you're eating. Healthy fats amplify this effect significantly. Fat does not spike insulin, and when consumed at the right moment in the right sequence, it actively extends the protective window that fiber and protein have already created. Many people still carry deep fear around eating fat, assuming it leads to fat gain. But in a meal designed around insulin control, healthy fat is one of your most powerful tools, not an enemy. Now, with all of that preparation complete, the fiber firewall in place, the protein and fat anchor firmly established, carbohydrates can finally enter your meal without causing the metabolic chaos that usually follows them. And this is perhaps the most important thing to understand. This approach does not require you to eliminate carbohydrates. You don't have to give up rice, pasta, fruit, or bread permanently. What changes is when they arrive within your meal. When carbohydrates are eaten last, your stomach is no longer empty and primed for rapid absorption. Your intestine is coated in protective fiber. Digestion has already slowed considerably. Gastric emptying is controlled. In this environment, even a meaningful portion of carbohydrates doesn't flood your bloodstream. It enters as a slow, steady, manageable stream that your body handles with a fraction of the insulin it would have required if those same carbs had been eaten first.
This is the fundamental shift. Not what you're eating, but in what order. Not how much you're restricting, but how intelligently you're sequencing. And the results that people experience when they apply this consistently go far beyond the scale. Energy stabilizes throughout the day. The afternoon crash disappears. Cravings between meals quiet down naturally without the need for any white-knuckled restraint. Hunger becomes manageable and predictable rather than overwhelming and urgent. These changes happen not because you found more discipline from somewhere inside yourself, but because your brain is finally receiving accurate information about the energy available in your body. When your cells can access fuel freely, when insulin is no longer chronically blocking the exit from your fat stores, your brain stops screaming that there's an emergency. And when that alarm finally goes quiet, everything becomes easier. Here is the bottom line. The reason so many people remain stuck, despite genuine effort, despite real sacrifice, despite eating less and pushing harder than they ever have before, is not a character flaw. It is a biological misunderstanding. The body does not respond to suffering. It responds to signals. And the signals you send at the very start of every meal, what enters your body first, trigger a cascade of hormonal responses that determine whether the next several hours are spent burning fat or storing it. You don't need a new diet. You don't need a harder workout. You don't need to eat less than you're already eating. You need to give your body the right sequence of signals so that insulin stays calm, fat stores stay accessible, and your metabolism finally gets to do the job it has always been capable of doing. Start with fiber. Follow with protein and fat. Let carbohydrates arrive last. It's not complicated, but it is powerful. And once you truly understand why it works, you will never think about eating the same way again.